This training is presented by the California Student Aid Commission. Welcome to our Middle Class Scholarship 2.0 training module series. This is Module 1, Awarding Formula. This module will cover the following MCS topics: eligibility requirements, award determination, programs included in the calculation, and helpful resources. To be considered for a Middle Class Scholarship Award, students must submit their FAFSA or CADA by the priority deadline every year. Unlike Cal Grant renewals, students must reapply every year by the priority deadline to be reconsidered for MCS. Typically, the priority deadline for MCS is March 2nd every year. However, the deadline was extended to April 2nd, 2025 for the 25-26 aid year only. Students must also be attending a UC, CSU, or be enrolled in a bachelor's degree program at a California community college. The student may not be in default on a federal student loan, must be pursuing their first undergraduate degree or teaching credential, cannot be incarcerated, must be a California resident and a U.S. citizen, eligible non-citizen, or a qualified immigrant who meets AB 540 status requirements. The student must also maintain satisfactory academic progress and be enrolled at least half-time to receive an MCS award. Similar to the Cal Grant program, MCS also has its own income and asset ceilings that are adjusted every year to account for the cost of living. MCS eligibility is based on the total income and net worth from the ICER file. For dependent students, only the parent's total income and net worth are considered. For independent students, only the total income and net worth of the student and spouse, if they are married, are considered. If the total income field has a null value, the Commission will mirror federal methodology to calculate the total income using the student, student spouse, or parent income additions and offsets as outlined in the Student Aid Index and Pell Grant Eligibility Guide. Students may receive middle class scholarship for up to 4 years of full-time attendance. Similar to the Pell and Cal Grant programs, MCS lifetime eligibility is calculated as a percentage. For example, 4 years of eligibility is calculated as 400%. A student's lifetime eligibility is based on their education level, or EL, by the school at the time of their very first MCS payment. For example, if a student is reported as a third-year junior during their initial MCS award year, that student will receive 2 years or 200% of lifetime MCS eligibility. Education level is determined by the school based on their own institutional policy and is reported through the MCS enrollment file or through a correction. MCS education level is not derived from the EL reported on the ICER file. As previously mentioned, the submission of enrollment files is required for student award consideration. It is the very first step in the MCS awarding process. There are 2 options for schools to submit enrollment data. First is manually via web grants on the student enrollment data screen. This might be a good option for schools with a very small MCS eligible population. The second option is in batch through the upload of enrollment files. Schools should use the enrollment file layout to format their data before uploading to web grants. We will discuss this topic in greater detail in our second MCS training module. Here is a look at the MCS award consideration timeline. Initial enrollment files are typically uploaded by institutions just ahead of the fall term in July or August. CSAC will announce the opening of the enrollment file submission process in a grant operations memo. Once all schools have submitted initial enrollment files, CSAC will temporarily close file submission to run the initial awarding process. Once initial awards have been run, CSAC will open the payment and correction process for that award year. Schools should continue submitting enrollment data for students not previously submitted or for students who had been determined as ineligible but need to be re-evaluated. Subsequent enrollment files submitted by close of business on Friday will be processed over the weekend. Determining the MCS award amount begins with calculating the difference between the student's cost of attendance and the sum of the following items. First, the student's total federal and state aid, institutional scholarships and grants, and fee waivers. Next, the student's total self-help gift aid, which includes private scholarships, institutionally administered non-need-based scholarships, and emergency aid, that is in excess of items 3 and 4. Third, we will use a fixed amount reflecting the expected student contribution, or SC. The fixed student contribution amount for 25-26 was $8,412 and will increase to $8,616 for the 26-27 year. Finally, the formula will include 33% of parent contribution, or PC, that is derived from the adjusted available income on the student's ISER. This fourth item is considered only for dependent students whose parents' total income is greater than $100,000. Let's break this down into a more basic formula. To determine the student's MCS award amount, CSAC uses the student's total cost of attendance as reported by the school. Then we subtract the sum of the student's other aid, the student contribution, the parent contribution if the parent's total income is greater than $100,000, which then is multiplied by the phase-in factor, which is determined by CSAC based on available funding and other factors. This is the basic formula that will determine the student's MCS award. Federal awards that must be reported include the Pell Grant, the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, the Teach Grant, the Bureau of Indian Affairs Award, and the Siegel AmeriCorps Education Award. The next category is institutional grants and fee waivers. Programs to include are institutional grants, athletic scholarships, fee waivers such as the Calvet fee waiver, Allen Patee, emergency assistance for foster youth, COVID-19 relief, employee tuition assistance, etc. Also, the Educational Opportunity Program, institutionally administered scholarships, including internship payments counted as OFA, the Student Success Completion Grant, AB 19 Books and Grants Funds, and TRIO Student Support Services Grants. Another category is state awards. Programs that must be included in the MCS calculation are the Child Development Grant, Law Enforcement Personnel Dependents Grant Program, the California Military Department GI Bill Award Program, the California Volunteers College Core Education Award, if not used for the repayment of student loans, and the Golden State Teacher Grant. Good news is that the Chafee Grant is no longer considered as OFA beginning in the 24-25 award year, which means Chafee funds should not be included in this section of the MCS award calculation. Cal Grant is also included in the MCS award calculation. Prior to 24-25, the Cal Grant award amount was either obtained from the Cal Grant award roster or was reported by the school in the state aid field. However, beginning in the 24-25 aid year, institutions are responsible for reporting Cal Grant amounts in a separate Cal Grant specific field. This includes field number 21 of the enrollment file, which should be based on the student's status from field number 9. For example, a fall-only Cal Grant amount should be reported if the student is set to a fall term only. On the payment roster file, schools report the annual Cal Grant amount as well as the award amount per term in fields number 66 through 69. Schools can also report the Cal Grant amount directly in Web Grants on the MCS display roster page. There are two Cal Grant fields on the MCS display roster to make note of. The first is on the top under Student Demographics. The Cal Grant Award field shows the Cal Grant value in Web Grants at the time the MCS award was processed. Please note, this field is not updated with subsequent transactions. This value is informational only and is not used in the calculation or recalculation of MCS awards. The Cal Grant field to pay close attention to is the Cal Grant amount under Annual Data. This is the annual Cal Grant amount as reported by the school in either the initial enrollment file or in any subsequent corrections via the payment roster file or MCS display roster. Next, we'll take a look at the term-specific Cal Grant section. When making term-specific corrections, be sure to include the Cal Grant award amount for that term. Cal Grant should no longer be reported in the state aid field. Instead, you should use only the Cal Grant specific field to report your students' actual Cal Grant award amounts. Corrections to the Cal Grant field can be made here in the MCS display roster in Web Grants or via the payment roster file in fields 66 through 69. Schools should also report the total amount of self-help gift aid, which is the total of private scholarships, institutionally administered non-need based scholarships, and institutionally awarded emergency aid for MCS award calculation purposes. Examples of emergency funds include those for housing, other basic needs, and assistance awarded by an institution-based foster youth support program. Even though the MCS awarding formula includes only the excess portion of these sources, schools should report the total amount a student has received in the self-help gift aid field. CSAC will calculate the excess portion to be used in the MCS award calculation. The following sources should not be reported as they are not included in the MCS award calculation. Chafee Grant for Foster Youth, Federal Direct Loans, Federal Work Study, the DREAM Act Service Incentive Grant, earnings from an internship or assistantship if treated as employment, federal veteran education benefits excluded from OFA per the U.S. Department of Education, California Volunteers College Corps Living Allowance, and funds from the California Department of Rehabilitation. With the passing of Senate Bill 148, there were some new changes made to the MCS award calculation. After the student's initial MCS award is calculated, schools can omit certain awards of less than $300 in any subsequent corrections and award recalculations. This exception applies specifically to new federal, state, or institutionally need-based scholarships, grants, or fee waivers of less than $300. This is not a one-time exception. Schools may exclude multiple awards of less than $300 from subsequent corrections after the initial MCS award is determined. However, the award must meet the guidelines listed on this page. This exception does not apply to enrollment load adjustments to existing awards, such as a Pell Grant increase. It only applies to brand new awards of less than $300 given to the student after their initial MCS award was calculated. For more middle class scholarship resources, be sure to visit our MCS webpage for schools. There you will find the comprehensive MCS handbook, enrollment file layouts, payment roster file layouts, and other important output data layouts. Thank you for watching Module 1 of our Middle Class Scholarship Training Module series.